Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. Moltrab here, again alongside Matt and Steve, hanging out at Matt's house here. We're gonna be watching Game 2 of Fantasy versus Jaedong. This is the OSL Finals. Yeah, you heard me right. This is the final. This is the finals right here, ladies and gentlemen. Everyone thinks it's the semifinals. Even the people at OGN thinks it's the semifinals, but really, whoever wins this series right now is gonna beat Yellow and take the tournament. So this is the true finals right here. It's like one time there were in the MSL a few seasons back. There's like a bunch of nubs, and then like one of the quarterfinals was like Bisu versus Stork, and another quarterfinal was like Huashin versus Luxury or something like that. And so it's like, these are the real finals right here, because these are going to be the two finalists, right? The winner of these games. Right. Anyway, I want to talk a little bit about the games that these guys have played just recently, because obviously, you know, we mentioned it before, Fantasy and Jaedong meeting twice in the Pro League finals, Fantasy winning both times.
That's right.
And that's coming off of, you know, so there's a lot of kind of back and forth mental stuff going on between these guys, and it's a lot about confidence. Confidence plays a huge role in Pro StarCraft. And something that Diggity was mentioning to me at the end of the Pro League finals is he was saying that he didn't know if Jaedong was going to be able to pick himself back up again after those losses, because this first loss was just crushing. I mean, he had that game. He had it. The one on Outsider, the like epic like 3-hour game or whatever. It wasn't actually 3 hours, but anyways, he had that game, and you know, it just got away from him. He basically said, "Oh, I've got 8 bases. I'll just pwn him with 8 bases," and Fantasy held out long enough for all 8 of those bases to mine out.
Yeah, and dropped a couple of them,
and then he tried to hold those last 2 bases, and Fantasy just had too much crap.
Yep.
And then to top it all off, Jaedong had a chance to come back in the ace match of day 2, and he was going for a normal build, and Fantasy came in with a tricksy little 2 barracks rush and owned him again. And Diggity was saying at the time, he said, "Wow, you know, these guys are going to be having a semifinal, and a drone scout is going to come in here and scout the early gas, by the way. He's going to check that out." So Jaedong knows he's going for mech again. I mean, we're going to see an early drone scout from Jaedong every single game, because he needs to know if Fantasy's going to mech every game to know how to react. Anyway, but Diggity was saying he thought that Jaedong was going to be, you know, like, hurt by it and not be able to perform as well in the future. And, you know, we've already seen him lose the first game, but what I said at the time to Diggity was that Jaedong is not the type of player to have that happen to him. He has been in these pressure situations. I mean, if you think about their OSL finals, OSL finals, Fanny was up 2-0, and Jaedong did not break, did not crack. He just played his butt off, and he came back, and Fantasy was the one that cracked and was not able to pull it off in the end. So I don't think, I mean, even though Jaedong is down 1-0, Jaedong is famous. I mean, think about the finals he's won before, like against Stork. He lost the first game to Stork, came back, boom, 3-1, and won it. So I do not think Jaedong is the type to choke under pressure at all. I think he does have the capability of coming back. That said, the last 3 times these guys have played together in the last week, Fantasy has won every one of them. So, I mean, Jaedong's confidence may not be broken, but Fantasy might just play better.
Yeah. Well, and it looks like Fantasy is actually continuing to get gas, at least for now. It looks like he's going to maybe build a command center out there, too. It looks like he was getting the add-on to his factory, too. So we might be seeing a little different, well, I wouldn't say it's different, but he's going to factory. And it looks like he's also going for a starport. So definitely going to be maybe even the same opening, but maybe we'll see a mech fall up here. I'm not sure. But I wanted to mention one thing. You talked about those Pro League maps. Fantasy did something that like no other Terran has done on Outsider before, and that is he held off and actually played Turtle Terran on Outsider, let Jaedong get all the bases, get the double gas, and he still won. And that is something I've like never seen a Terran do on Outsider. Usually Outsider is somewhat of a Zerg favorite map, because if you wait long enough, the Zerg just builds a bunch of Sunkens at their front, and they just get all the expansions, and, you know, get the double gas, and then just go to Ultras and all that crap, or Guardians, and then run over the Terran. And, you know, so you have this timing window where you've got it, you don't want to be in the late game with a Zerg. But Fantasy was able to go to late game against Jaedong, you know, toe-to-toe, and still win. So even though earlier, you know, I was kind of saying, well, Jaedong hasn't really been, as creative in the OSL finals. But like you said, Molchap earlier, just the fact that Jaedong picked the build, he was able to pick, that 2-hatch build and counter Fantasy, that's still impressive in and of itself. But the fact is, Fantasy is not just a one-trick pony. He's not just, I Love Oo's Air or Boxer's Puppet or whatever. He has those creative builds, but he's already proven that he can beat Jaedong straight up. And so that's where I worry for Jaedong and feel like, wow, Jaedong, he's got to pull something creative, because Fantasy has all the creative plays already in his mind. He's already got all these special builds. And on top of that, he can beat Jaedong heads up. So definitely it's going to be tough. But like you said, Moltrap, being down 1-0 is nothing for Jaedong. Jaedong's actually said before, I think in his interviews, that it's kind of his style to go down a game and then come back and win. He does this all the time. He goes down one game, and then he wins the next two. And he did it in the OSL. He goes down 2 games in the 2 OSL to Fantasy, and then he figures out, he gets his head in the game, and he wins 3. And that is just amazing. Jaedong, not only is he the dong, he has the biggest balls of them all, I think, when it comes to pro gamers. Any other programmer, is just going to be hurt by that. And even Fantasy, he loses 1 game to Jaedong in the 2 OSL, or 1 or 2 games, and they show him, talking to Uv and, with that little interview sidebar, and he just looks distraught. And the rate going down.
Speaking of looking distracted.
Perfect scourge spawn there for Jaedong. But yeah, I just feel like even someone like Fantasy is someone who's going to take a loss and just take it to heart more. Jaedong he sees that as a challenge, and he just comes back and wins still. So you certainly can't count Jaedong out here. It looks like Jaedong is moving out a little bit with his Hydras here, trying to get some map control, and Fantasy has his Vultures to greet. But anyways, yeah, I think it's going to be a tooth and nail type matchup.
He's trying to tempt him into that mine. He's saying, come into the mine.
Come in, buddy. Come in, buddy.
He's like, no. Oh!
He's like, I got ice cream. Come
Overlord finally makes it slow Overlord. It looks like we've seen Jaedong has his 3rd hatchery up, and
it's a race basically to siege at this point. Fantasy needs to get some turrets up, although Jaedong hasn't gone Mutalisk. I believe I saw Aspire already there, so Jaedong could bring some Mutalisk up anytime. We haven't seen his base in a little while, but certainly these mines aren't going to do anything. So if that siege finishes, Fantasy is fine. And Fantasy, without speed, going to try to go in here. I don't know. Wow, he's going to actually make it through without speed. Wow, those are so slow. Dude, I felt like I'm watching the game in slow motion. They're like, come on, let's get up here, guys. So, not really going to do a whole lot with this, but forcing Jaedong to pull back his Hydralisk. And really, that's enough. Because Jaedong's now not going to have a front, not going to have any sort of attack on his front, and Fantasy can turtle and can do his thing. Wow, Jaedong losing 2, that's a shame, although obviously it's really difficult to micro against a Vulture, even a slow Vulture with just a melee only. Well, obviously drones are technically not melee, but they have a very short range. Fantasy getting way too many. Oh, there we go. Okay, good. All right. So Jaedong now is getting the double gas. He's getting a 3rd hatchery up for the double gas. Jaedong is going to be strong here. Just lost a couple drones. Doesn't matter. Fantasy is going to be playing a turtling